Let's discuss some of the red flags and also some of the possible positives that the Ahsoka show can deliver when it comes out in a few weeks. Let's start off with the bad and then we'll go into the good. As you can see in this article by Bespin Bulletin a few days ago, and I made a video about this. This is one of the big red flags already for this show, that Dave Filoni wanting to insert Ahsoka into the main Skywalker saga here, main George Lucas saga here, and trying to insert her into main events with the main characters here and main storylines. Now, before I go further, and I'll expand on this red flag here as well, is that Anakin Skywalker's main story, in order to understand his main story and his main conflict lies with Obi-Wan, Padme, and Palpatine, with an extension of Luke Skywalker later on in his life, and also Qui-Gon and Shmi Skywalker, his mother. Anakin Skywalker does not need Ahsoka to make his character arc better or anything like that, because George Lucas did not have Ahsoka in his films or his movies, or even had her in mind in the movies. He was an afterthought for this Clone Wars episode where he thought, hey, maybe he should have an apprentice to show some interesting facets about Anakin and maybe help him mature and stuff like that. All this is just Dave Filoni thinking that Ahsoka needs to be added here because he thinks that it would add to Anakin's story in any form of way, when it really doesn't. It's just a fantasy, a play in his mind and in his Ahsoka world, where he wants to have her in all these main events. Now, before I go further, let me show you a quick clip of Dave Filoni talking about keeping Ahsoka alive when George Lucas actually did not.
I've always been a bit more in the Ahsoka lives camp, and George has been very full on in the Ahsoka dies camp. I think I've said that before, if not revelation for you.
So as you can see in that clip, it's obvious that George Lucas did not want to keep Ahsoka alive. He had no story for her whatsoever after Order 66, and she served her purpose in the Clone Wars. If we had had a hero's death for her in Order 66, that, in my opinion, would have been great and enough for her character. Maybe she could have had a complete character arc before she died, and then had just a hero's death in Order 66, and they could have shown that in the Clone Wars. But no, Dave Filoni, he pushed it forward, and not just that, he pushed it all the way past the original trilogy into after Return of the Jedi, and it just makes you wonder, what was she doing all those years as Luke, Han, and Leia were fighting the Empire with the Rebels? Where was she? What was she doing? Wasn't she aware of Darth Vader and the Emperor were high in power, and there were just there was all this darkness in the galaxy, and the Rebels were basically the underdog, and sometimes they were in over their heads fighting the Empire? Where was Ahsoka and everything like that? Why wasn't she looking for Yoda or Obi-Wan? Or why wasn't Yoda looking for Ahsoka, trying to contact Ahsoka for help, knowing that she's a powerful Force user and an ex-Jedi? So it just doesn't make any sense. And then suddenly she pops up after Return of the Jedi, and she's more prevalent. Now we're going to have a whole show with her, because now she's going to come into the light and say, oh yeah, Luke, Han, and Leia handled the original trilogy. Now it's up to me to handle Thrawn and handle the new Imperial Remnant. It just doesn't make sense. And also, if you're going to have Thrawn and the Imperial Remnant come back strong, I'm pretty sure it's important for Luke, Han, and Leia to be there, try to stop that Imperial Remnant, which was part of the Empire that they originally defeated in Return of the Jedi. So these are all red flags, you know. Also, just Dave Filoni just thinking that he could probably resubmerge some of the stuff from the EU with Heir to the Empire, knowing that Disney and Kathleen Kennedy just scrapped all that, said throw all that to the trash. We're going to start our own expanded universe, Disney Star Wars expanded universe. And we know how that has gone, and they have not done a very good job of doing good comic book stories, good novel stories there. So Dave Filoni thinks that he can probably do a better Heir to the Empire now that he wants Ahsoka to take over this story and his rebel characters and everything like that. I know that Thrawn was established in Rebels, but again, why couldn't Dave Filoni just end the story of Thrawn in that? Why did he have to do this whole scenario where he jumped into hyperspace with Ezra and they're in the unknown regions, and I guess the story picks up I think it would have been nicer if he just would have stopped there. And then we as fans, we could have still acknowledged Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. That was Thrawn. And then the same story where Thrawn exists in Rebels is there. And as many decades later, Thrawn returns and he fights against Luke, Han, and Leia. But no, now he wants to continue that story. Where is Han, Luke, and Leia going to fit in this story with Thrawn returning, Ezra returning, and then Ahsoka in the picture? What it feels like more is that he's just going to focus on his rebel characters, on Ahsoka, and them dealing with Thrawn. And then you're always going to have that question or wonder, where's Han, Luke, and Leia, and why aren't they paying attention to this big Imperial remnant, a leader coming back and trying to take over the galaxy or whatever? What is going on with those three characters, with those three heroes? There are a lot of questions right now. I know the show is not out yet, and we'll see what happens. Are they just going to deep fake all those three original heroes into the show, and they're going to come out and join Ahsoka? We will see. That would be an incredible feat to accomplish, to have those three characters on there in, you know, what's it called, in deep fake form. We'll see what happens. But for right now, it doesn't look like it. There's not rumors or any kind of sneak, you know, peeks or anything like that at those characters coming back. But I think they're very integral to this story, especially with Thrawn and this Imperial Remnant. So those are two red flags right there, with Dave Filoni messing with Heir to the Empire, and then even Revenge of the Sith here, and propping up Ahsoka to be this big thing, which she isn't. Another red flag right here is why don't we see a lot more of Thrawn or Ezra? I know probably Thrawn is being saved for the best for later. But what about Ezra? And there's just a lot in the trailers, in the marketing. There's just a lot of this like girl power type of stuff going on with Sabine, what's it called, with Hera and Ahsoka. They even added a female villain there next to this new guy right there, this new dark side user guy, and they even have a returning female villain from the Mandalorian episode where Ahsoka fought that lady. I forget her name. I'll put it right here on the screen and her picture. But wow, this really is like all girls, all females, and I don't have anything against good, strong female characters, but it just feels disingenuous. It feels like they're really shoving it in there. That for me is a red flag, only because of everything that has happened in the Star Wars franchise under Disney, under the new Lucasfilm. How come we don't see a poster of Ezra? How come we don't see a poster of Thrawn? We don't even see any images of Kanan at all. I know Kanan's dead, but we don't see anything on Kanan at all to show that these characters, in many ways, followed Kanan. Kanan was the leader of this group in Rebels. So at this point, I just don't trust them with all of this female empowerment type of stuff that they're shoving into the show with the imagery and everything like that. It just feels disingenuous, and it feels forced, especially with everything that they've done with the Disney Star Wars brand. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for strong female characters. You have to write them as well as male characters, and as they in movies and shows we've seen, and we have plenty of examples of great female characters in shows and movies. But in this case also, they're shoving on us, on the promotion and the marketing, like what, five, six female characters. Are you telling me that they're gonna do a bang up job of giving them all nice, well written arcs? It's just a lot of characters to juggle. Then you still have Thrawn and Ezra, which I think are probably much more important than any of these other characters. I think it should be Ahsoka, Ezra, and Thrawn, the main three characters that are really the ones that need the development in the show, because they're looking for Ezra, and Thrawn is the main villain. Hera and Sabine, they had their arcs in Rebels. Sabine had a whole arc where she's becoming a warrior. Hera had her arc with Kanan, and she had a kid. We don't need to expand on those characters. Sure, it would be nice to have more character development, but as far as importance and priorities, I don't think we need to develop them as much as what we need for Ezra, Ahsoka, and Thrawn. So where is Thrawn and Ezra in the marketing? Who knows? Are they planning a season 2 where they're going to have them more around? We'll see how the show turns out. But again, also, if this show fails, Disney Star Wars, Disney Lucasfilm, they don't really have a lot to fall back on. And this show is really going to prove the value of this brand at the end of the day. Even though the brand really is in the gutter right now, it's really going to prove, even probably to the normies, that the brand really is in a really bad bad shape, and it's gonna probably need a whole like big reboot to really make things right. And I think that reboot's gonna have the original characters back, or what a lot of fans have suggested, just move the story many years later, after the original movies, or many years into the past, and just do original stories set in those time frames. But in my opinion, I think that they just need to reboot it and do a show or movie that captures the original characters, the original George Lucas characters of the original trilogy in the right light, in the right way. Do that, do a proper sequel trilogy, and then just move forward to some other timeline in the saga. Don't leave those characters in the gutter. Don't leave Luke, Han, and Leia in the gutter the way Disney Lucasfilm has tried to reboot it. But knowing Disney and Lucasfilm the way right now that they are, I don't think they have it in them to do anything like that. And they've lost a lot of fans, a lot of interest. So this show has a lot to live up for, and this show really is one of the final benchmarks that if it fails, a lot of fans are going to leave this franchise for good. Now, for the good and positive, I have potentially two good things that could really make this show great and fix even the Star Wars franchise. And the first one being that if the rumors are true that Ahsoka is going to use the World Between Worlds to do whatever she needs to stop Palpatine that we see in the Rise of Skywalker, or any other antagonist or something like that, and in the process she fixes things and she resets things, or she creates another timeline where the sequels are gonna exist, and then the other timeline, the original George Lucas saga, can continue in the right way, and we get a proper sequel trilogy, either with Dave Filoni's future movie, or within this show, and the original characters come back. So the positive is that it could retcon the sequels, but in a way where the sequels exist in a different timeline, and anybody that wants to follow that storyline can go ahead and follow that storyline still. But it'll be a way for Disney and Lucasfilm to divert to another timeline, a multiverse if you want to call it, and then make things right for once. Dave Filoni fixing the Star Wars franchise by retconning the sequels into a different timeline. That would be a positive. Now, the other thing would be if just Dave Filoni does that, and or it does a really good story that respects the George Lucas saga here that came before it, and that he does it. It's well written. We have good character development, a good story worth watching. Those are the positives, and those are the hopes that if Dave Filoni turns out a banger of a show, and or he retcons the sequels, then this could be great. In my opinion, I would prefer he retcons the sequels and it's a good show. But knowing Disney Star Wars, I feel like that's a lot to ask, and I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Those are just like speculations and theories on what it can make this show really good, and it's those two things in my opinion. Otherwise, with the track record that Disney Star Wars has, is very little chance that can probably happen at all. That's going to do it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be reviewing Ahsoka when it comes out in a few weeks on its first 2 episodes on this channel. Let me know what you think. Hit that like button if you like this video. In the meantime, I'll see you guys next time, and may the Force be with you.